to be chairman of this very short session with only 2 papers, but very, very important papers, because we discussed about artificial intelligence applied in biology and also in healthcare. I have pleasure to invite Professor Andrei to talk about these papers. Artificial intelligence assisted method in assessing the transient behavior of living cells. Please.
Thank you. So I will try to describe a bit about unconventional computing in the age of AI. I will start with a short discussion about the AI, because I am affiliated with the Research Institute of the Romanian Academy dealing with this artificial intelligence, and it's an old institute, and I have a second affiliation in University of Bucharest. So the first part of the talk, about 10 minutes, I will try to describe the AI field, brief history of the AI in present and future, and then I will go into the spiking neural systems, the ones that I am looking at recently, and then finally, if I will be briefly speaking about some of the research projects that are taking place in the research institute that I lead. So, about AI, please know that AI is old. It's not for the past 3 years when ChatGPT appeared. Even in the 40s, had described the Hebbian learning, and even Turing himself was trying to describe and model B machine, brain machine, and so on. Farley, Clark, 54, and Rosenblatt is the one that did the back propagation that is widely used today. And there are several other big results in the 50s and 60s. I would like to explain why we are still interested in modeling neurons. And basically, the 60s and 70s modelings led to the failure. Basically, those modelings did not capture the actual behavior of neurons, but it gave us a very nice model artificial neural networks that we are all using when we are discussing with whatever ChatGPT or Llama or whatever. And initially they were used in pattern recognition, and later on in different kinds of things. I would like to also point out that in the 70s, Marin Pininsky, that was leading the AI Institute at MIT, was predicting that in 8 years we'll have the computer with human intelligence and so on. I've been in some research talks at the Romanian Academy in the Aula that were saying that in 5 years or 8 years we'll have an AI co-author on our papers and all these things. I'll come back to Minsky in a bit. Because of those predictions and people suggesting that AI will do everything, in the 70s and 80s there was the so-called AI winter, in which famous like Henry Ford appeared in the UK, and then funding was cut in many parts of the world about these AI projects. And one final thing about history, being a computer scientist, I know about the fifth generation computer project in Japan, but probably not so many people in biology know. Again, a complete failure project, a lot of money, but still produced a lot of know-how in this area that was able to push the field forward. And there was a second winter, 1990s and 2000, with very few funding in this area of AI that is now booming, of course. But I would like to point out that in that period, we were absolutely astonished to hear that the Deep Blue computer server will be able to beat at chess the big Kasparov and so on. And even, well, 10 years now ago, AlphaGo beat Lise Dollar Go. Go being a much stronger game. How many of you know Go or play Go? Okay, so I didn't think during my lifetime that a computer will be able to play whatever one dan Go, and it was a big price, like $1 million for a computer program to do that. And the guys at AlphaGo went directly for the 7-dan master of the humanity, basically. And I'll go to the present. So our society is recognizing the AI that is big and important. Of course, in the last 3 years, the large language models took the world by storm. And I remind you that in November 2022, it was developed or released OpenAI with ChatGPT and several other models. Just to mention an interesting number, about 70 models were released last year, but only about, let's say, 5 of them were from Europe. The rest are from the US and China. So we are not going well. The humanity recognized AI as a big, important development in the world by awarding actually 2 Nobel Prizes for physics and chemistry. Hochfield and Hinton are physics researchers, but the very next day, Baker, Hassabis, and Jumper received Nobel Prize for folding proteins and AlphaFold, and Hassabis and Jumper are actually Google employees and computer scientists, let's say. So what is the future of AI? And then I'll go into the part of my stuff. So AI needs chips and energy. The European Chips Act is bringing, let's say, chips in Europe and so on, but the energy resources are humongous, and all the companies that are dealing with servers and cloud computing and so on are buying actually nuclear powers. So they are either building or buying nuclear reactors. I kind of told that I'm hoping, and I don't think that will exceed human intelligence. Now, there is a big discussion what means human intelligence, and there is this test from Turing himself, the imitation game in which a computer should chat with you, and you as a human should not detect whether you are talking with a machine or not. And unfortunately, that is already exceeded in November 2025. ChatGPT beat us there. So we can no longer decide whether we are talking with a human or not with these large language models, but that's another discussion. Just a few more things about the risks. Hinton himself, 1 year before receiving Nobel Prize, resigned from Google Brain because one of the leaders at Google wants too fast to get the so-called AI god to be active, let's say, at Google. And of course, we have the EU Artificial Intelligence Act that is regulating different things. Just yesterday, I think it was announced that it was postponed for 1 more year. It was supposed to enter in full force in August 2026. It is evident that it's changing the world and how we search online. A few years ago, we were using Google and so on. Now, and I remind you that Google entered the dictionary in many languages. Will probably have ChatGPT entering dictionary in the same way. How we read books. So notebook LM can do very fast reviews of the literature and so on. And my students are actually using this to upload the course textbook, let's say, and ask Notebook LM to create a podcast. So they no longer want to read the courses, they want to listen to the podcast in which two agents are talking with each other to do stuff, and of course create images and videos and so on. And I give you the whatever Trump one day before the election of the Pope and other stuff. So how many of you have seen this website, thispersondoesnotexist.com, or have you heard of it? Okay, one person. This is actually older than ChatGPT and everything, and basically it's generating images of people that to the human eye are real, let's say. And I remind you that biologically we are hardwired to detect faces and to actually see whether they are real or not. It was a big issue in the Hollywood, how to generate faces of virtual actors, and they were able to create tigers and lions and whatever, but with the humans they could not do that. And of course these are ladies who can generate men and so on. So we live in a crazy world because recently Hollywood actors sold their image rights to different companies. For example, Bruce Willis, the images, and McConaughey and Michael Caine, the voices, and so on. So a couple of papers about AI and dependence, and then I promise that I go to the unconventional computing part. There is a nice paper from last year in which they were looking at medical doctors that endoscopists that are doing colonoscopies, 2,000 of them, and basically for 3 months they will do their stuff, and then 3 months they will do the same colonoscopy AI assisted, and then for another 3 months do the colonoscopy normally. And the shock was that in the last period, the adenoma detection, whatever, precancerous thing decreased by 22% with no change in the society or whatever. So basically, the doctors who got used and dumped, let's say, by the AI, in a similar way, I would say, as we are using Google Maps right now. And if we ask the young generation that is in the room right now whether they opened a map to go in Bucharest somewhere, probably they all will say no. And this is a big problem. Another interesting thing, sometime after COVID, there was a huge paper that was saying that just from X-ray images with AI, the AI would be able to detect the race of the patient, whether it's black or white. And it was later observed that actually the AI itself would detect some features of the X-ray images with respect to the type of the machine, fixed or mobile, and then that would lead to the inference, because maybe in the black communities would go with the mobile device versus the fixed one. So please know that the AI is a black box. We do not know what's going on inside, and we need, of course, explainable and so on. Of course, creates dependence, and there are many other issues with privacy and so on, but it helps. So let's go now to the unconventional computing area. AI, we got it by simply trying to simulate neurons and failing, but still capturing some ideas of the interaction between the neurons and how they process data and so on. And we want to compute with cells. I'm a computer scientist, so I want to use, let's say, the biological information and do meaningful computations, whatever computing means. Of course, we can manipulate the cells better, and we want to use this notion of parallelism. Again, what means parallelism? And why? Because there are, of course, current limits to the silicon computer. Who are some of the big guys in this area? Adleman, Tom Head. Adleman started the DNA computing field. I will just give a brief picture in the next slide. But it's from Rotmund. Basically, he did this idea of self-assembly of DNA with a very nice idea. And the idea is the following. Having a plasmid and having the complete sequence of that plasmid, let's say it's single-stranded, you put the complement of one part and another part there, so just one small strand there, and then you make an 8, let's say, or infinity, whatever you want to say. And computationally, you can plan to have all these staples everywhere there, so it's just a big circular strand mapped in many places, and then you can make a smiley face at the nano level. So this is the idea of self-assembly that we would like to continue. So to have some sort of instructions, whatever means instruction, in that case, it's just the hybridization and the sequence of the plasmid. And then, of course, have many individuals that are processing that information in parallel, and then gets the result somehow, for example. And of course, for DNA, we have this hybridization operation, but we would like to go to cells, neurons, and pathways, and to somehow be able to control how the neuron behaves. So, of course, there are some results in which we have more and more information about the pathways in the cells, and I don't go into the swarm computing direction. So, we were looking at initially simple antiport systems, so the level of the plasma membrane and so on, but we went closer and closer to the neurons. Why neurons? There are, of course, the two big projects, one in Europe, one in the US. The one in Europe that ended maybe a year ago or so. The one in the US is still running, I guess. And the big idea is that, please forget about this, okay? So I'm a computer scientist, and I see all that here. So I have basically a region and then some rules. Of course, it's a much cleaner reality than that, but this is the idea. And from the Wolfgang Mass idea is that it doesn't matter the spike and the amplitude of the spike or whatever to process the information, but the spike train, so the actual timing of these things are important, meaning that the neuron needs some sort of information about the previous spikes received. And we are modeling this with a multiset, and then we model some rules. Here, a rule says that forget one spike, and this rule is a regular expression, whatever that means. It's saying that for an odd number, even number, you start spiking. So this is just one neuron. Now this is maybe more neurons, and this is almost 10 years ago, this the real visualization of the neuron connections. But again, we see not the messy biology, but some clean way of doing business, and we go now in trying to model some things about this. Now, what means computing? Of course, computing started with Alan Turing. He gave us the Turing machines, which are basically anything that we can compute, calculate mechanically in this world. Such a machine with maybe, let's say, 3 instructions in the assembly language, they can do. So what we try to do is simulate these machines with our neurons, and then we prove that we have universal computer. But we don't even simulate the Turing machines themselves because of the tape and so on. We simulate the register machines that were proven by Minsky, the one that said in 8 years we'll get computers that are smarter than us, and this is what we do. So one final remark about the neurons. About 20 years when I was in the US, I collaborated with Mark de Coster from Tulane, in which he basically had a lattice of neurons. This is a neuron, this is another one, and he was able to force these neurons to create synapses between them just by electric charges, with some issues there because the neurons will die in about a week or so. But the idea is that for a planar graph, we could actually try to create this neural interconnection. So about these SMP spiking neural T systems, they are already quite old. There are many variants, and the idea is that we represent neurons as directed graph, as I showed before. We only have one symbol A, and then the number of spikes received by such a neuron is basically the multiplicity of that symbol. And we are having such a model, let's say, in which we have an initial state. So we have 2 A's here, 1 A here. Here we can only apply this rule, but here we have no deterministic choice between these 2 rules. And if we choose this one, then the system replenishes, and then it's refiring and so on. If we use this one, we have a delay 1, the neuron enters refractory mode, and then it's basically ignoring the impulse coming from here, and then the system stops. So this is in brief the description of these things. And there are several results. It was proven by Oscar Ibarra that we need at least an unbounded neuron. An unbounded neuron is one with a star, basically. So we need one with a star to have universal machine. And at that time, he proved that 84 neurons are universal. So basically, whatever Mark de Coster did in his lab with 3 neurons, we need 80 something, which is humongous, but still we proved that for this particular type of work, we get universal. And then I go into some more technical things that maybe are not interesting. Basically, we have this is the universal machine that Quartz showed that are able to simulate any Turing machine with this register machine types. Basically, we have only 2 instructions, add and sub. Sub is like an if statement, and add is just an increment. And we were able to show some improvements here. And I see that the time is running very quickly. So we had this idea of maximal sequentiality, in which the neuron that has the most spikes is the one that will fire next. And this is closer to the integrate and fire modeling. So, but there are of course always some assumptions that are needed to be dealt with. With this extension, and maybe I go quickly through this, and the subtract is much more complicated. So basically, I want this register R that is encoding values double. So if I want to encode the value, I don't know, 15, I need to put here 13. Yeah. And what is happening, I spike here, I send two spikes, one here and one here, then the one with more spikes there will be the next one to fire, and this is the one, because it has two, this has one, so it will fire once and it will have a delay of one. This one will be the next one that will fire, and then non-deterministically one of these will choose which one to fire, and it will execute the next instruction in the program. So it's simple. This is much more complicated, in which the firing here, I remind you that we are encoding even numbers. If it becomes odd, then it will decrease basically by one. So that's the trick. But that means that it needs to check for 0 or non-zero, which I think are too many, let's say, details that are not so important for a biological audience in majority. So bottom line, we got with this new maximum sequentiality 100 neurons needed for universality, but it's closer to the actual reality. And there are some other results that I'll skip. So we were looking for different versions and so on, and at the end of the day, 21 neurons are enough, and we are very proud of this result. In the future, of course, we want to do the implementation itself of those neurons, and to actually simulate cells and so on, and maybe do some stochasticity. Of course, there are several assumptions that all the signals arrive at the same time, and all these things, which are probably not true in reality. Another observation is that all our proofs are using the way we do the computing right now, very sequential. Whereas the parallelism from nature is actually forced into sequentiality, but we need to use the actual parallelism to gather better results that are nicer and closer to nature. And in the past 2 minutes, I will go to one other direction. I will just use this slide, and that's it. So basically, there are some types of tumors, 60 number, and unfortunately for 3 of them, there are no real solutions, medicine and so on. What is happening, a group at NIH is doing Raman spectroscopy on these paraffin probes, and it's very high resolution, and we were able, using AI, to show that the signal can be cleaned, and we can actually find the tumor and not the tumor. The vision is to not cut the brain itself before the surgery, to try to do Raman outside the skull, and then to predict whether it's one of the metilations that are not able to be dealt with, and not continue with the surgery. Unfortunately, we had, I'll skip all this, we had a bad result, in a sense that we showed that inside the tumor there are actually 3 two or three types of the methylation, so it's not a clean one, just one type. So but we are still working in that direction. And finally, just a few projects from the Research Institute at the Romanian Academy. We are very happy to be part of LLMs for EU project that involves about 50 partners at the level of European Union to build an AI, a ChatGPT, let's say, with European engine and European data. That will by far not be the best one there, but will create competence also in Europe. We also have this fake news detection, which has absolutely nothing to do with biology and so on. The Research Institute is having corpus of Romanian language, which is the best corpus for Romanian language, and we can detect fake news only in the Romanian language, and this partnership with the Republic of Moldavia. And the last one, recently announced AI Factory that will be funded and operational in 2027, it seems, in which basically we'll have a big computer to run more models and even simulate better neurons and so on. And the Research Institute is open to collaborations in many directions, and I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Very nice overview about the evolution of artificial intelligence and some results. But I would say that in our institute we have a National Center for Research and Brain. We're working now to create a real model to understand how it's working our brain and try to make a connection between artificial intelligence and natural intelligence. If you have some questions, please.
Very nice talk. Sorry.
Please.
Very nice talk, congratulations. I want to ask about the dangers of AI. So now AI is we know that can be very good for science, can accelerate data interpretation, extract more data and so on. But we know very well that can be also dangerous. And for this, I want to refer not only to the fact that can provide bad interpretation that people can take for granted, but can also be bad in the editorial processes. Now people write papers with ChatGPT, do review reports with ChatGPT. So besides, let's say, relying on human ethics and morals, which we know that can be well implemented or not, or is not universal, do you think in the future we'll have a remedy to this, to know, an editor to know when a paper is written by ChatGPT or not, and vice versa, to know when a review report has been generated solely by ChatGPT?
To give you an answer to this, I know this year a conference in the AI field that is doing the following. So for each submission, you need to do 3 referee reports for that particular conference. And they specifically say, please do not use any AI tools for doing reports. And they embedded some instructions in the submissions. And they detected almost a third of the reports done with whatever, ChatGPT and so on, by that embedded. So they basically fired 1/3 of the submissions, but this is one time only because then people adapt. So bottom line, I've seen many reviews of research projects and so on that are done with AI tools, and they are evident that they are done with AI tools, at least from whatever our eye, but you cannot prove. I was one other thing, and I'm done. So I have no clue what to answer, but thank you for the question. About a month ago, I was the Romanian presidency about justice AI, and they were saying that the justice people need to deal with 1,000 dossiers per month or whatever, and these are secrets. But the lead of DNSC, whatever, said that if you ask ChatGPT, give me an example of a dossier, it will provide a dossier from Vaslui almost complete and real. So people do not understand that these ChatGPT, Claude, Llama, and so on are needed a lot of information. They are starving for information, and you are the information. So whatever the information you put there, it will be basically living forever then in the system, which is very bad and all that stuff. I think he wanted to ask a question and then...
It was a very interesting presentation. I had just one question. You presented this computational framework that's an alternative to actually the classical architecture. I had a question, how does it lend itself to machine learning algorithms?
So machine learning is trying to do, how to say, some sort of classification, let's say. So black and white or whatever, 6 classes and all these things. Like the output layer usually is trying to do some sort of classification. What I try here to do is universal computing, meaning to do this. It's the same as difference between machine learning and putting a PowerPoint here and all these things which are much different.
Other question, please.
I like that you mentioned Minsky, because perhaps Minsky is one of your big names, and I realized only late. Perhaps you know what is the community here in the room. More than 1/3 here people do microscopy. And Minsky, I found late, very late, teaching confocal microscopy for 20 years, that Minsky practically is now was one who predicted the future of AI. And we have in confocal microscopy, he hasn't written any papers, but he only created a patent in '61, and he is practically our creator, the creator of confocal microscopy is Minsky. So the communities share values here in between AI and microscopy.
What I would like to say is that Minsky, I don't think he predicted, he correctly identified the value of these tools. It's just that in the 70s we didn't have enough computer power.
Yeah.
It's just that. So all if you look at the models that are running now, they are with some difference, bootstrap and so on, but transformers. But other than that, they are the same models. It's just that it doesn't have one hidden layer, it has 10 hidden layers, but it's not that we didn't think about, or they didn't think about many layers, the computing power was not there. Now it is, and it's absolutely astounding how nice it's answering the ChatGPT and all that stuff, and of course memory and all that stuff. So thank you for that.
But there is another facet of this, is the fact that when we teach physics and we try to attract people to our profession, they are, oh yeah, okay, fine, not so glamorous, not so modern, but when we tell them, look, Minsky also was involved with AI. Okay. that makes the field of microscopy and the photonics more attractive to them. Yeah.
Okay, so good. We have, please.
You know, there must be theorems about kind of where the limits really are, right? Because at some point, AI, by definition, should not be able to solve NP problems, right? If it's built on a Turing machine model, then if NP, if somebody proves that P equals to NP, then it's a different story. But if NP is are hard problems that basically cannot be solved in finite time, then however smart they get, they'll never be able to be as smart as humans who have intuitions about NP hard problems without solving them, right?
So, of course, you are right, and I believe that P is different than NP. It's just that we do not know how to prove it. It's just that in some instances you can get away with more space. So in a sense, the same as Adleman did. So Adleman, with his famous experiment, exactly did using DNA. He solved an NP-complete problem, but an instance, a small instance, 7-degree graph with DNA. So push the exponentiality into the space. Why? Because you can create more DNA strands using PCR and so on. So having an exponential number of DNA strands can help you solve that problem. So in a sense, this is the idea, to try to use parallelism from biology and try to solve some problems, some instances of problems. But for sure, in large numbers, you need mass of Earth to manipulate or whatever, and that's it. So.
Can I make
Any other questions?
may I make a comment on this direction?
Yeah.
So in principle, the NP problems can be solved if you use quantum computing, in principle. Okay, some of them, okay? But of course we don't have the quantum computers. On the other hand, the quantum computer is just an algorithm, right? I mean, if I'm able to simulate the entanglement of space with enough many spaces, then I'm simulating a quantum computer. And these LLMs might be capable of actually simulating your quantum computer and use that simulating quantum computer to solve your hard problem.
I think it's exactly the opposite, right?
Exactly. LLMs are not.
You need a quantum computer to simulate.
If I may interrupt, I think that is a never-ending discussion.
Okay,
One technical.
Please.
In the UK, Medical Research Council supported with 1.8 million to Romanians to do microscopy plus Raman plus AI. There is a grant going on. We have one over here. The other Romanian is from the school of Professor Ashtilan. His name is one, not in there. And
We should talk.
optics works. My optics works. His Raman works. But AI is not yet. So we'll be very interested to hear more about your studies on brain. So that is for breast.
So that's.
Okay.
We definitely are interested in collaboration. So.
Okay. Thank you very much for the presentation. I think it's very important to have in mind that artificial intelligence is applied now in research activity. And in this moment, some companies in the United States working to develop quantum artificial intelligence systems. They're working to integrate quantum machine with a power, with a speed, and some special AI algorithms. That I think would be, have in mind that very useful biology, medicine, many other. Thank you very much for the presentation.